I'm so excited. It's May, and in May, artists, at least a few of them, like to come together and draw like a butt ton of mermaids. I'm gonna be trying my best to post every day in May over on my Instagram, so if you're not following me on there, you're missing out on at least 29 other drawings. I've been focusing a lot on like using pencils and sometimes throwing some digital color on there, but I'm having a lot of fun. So I decided to carry that into today's video. I'm currently trying to figure out the layout of the sketch, and I can hardly see what I'm drawing. And this pencil's honestly giving my hand a cramp. This is the only like rose-colored Color pencil I have left, so I'm trying to make it work. Now I just can't get enough pressure to get something visible, so I'm gonna try and MacGyver this pencil onto this Ohu marker. I guess I'll just like tape them together. That way I have something to hold on to, because like I'm squeezing my fingers so much it's just making my whole wrist and it's like shooting up my arm. So that can't possibly be anything good. I don't know how much tape I'm gonna need, but hopefully this will work for now. I'm a genius! So it's not a perfect solution, but it is a solution nonetheless. And honestly, this is much more comfortable to hold. I'm still not able to get like those dark lines that I'm looking for, but the plan is to use Copic markers on top of this. So I'm going to sketch with this Color pencil, then I'm going to ink with maybe a Sakura Micron or something, and then use Copic markers over top that. So the lighter this is, the less I'll have to erase, so that's always a plus. But the lighter it is, the harder it will be to see, which could lead to mistakes. I'm not too worried right now because I'm still laying out the sketch, but as soon as I start making some like definitive decisions, I'm gonna have to darken some things up. We can't forget little blobfish. I think the first time I drew a blobfish, you know what? We're probably nearing like 8 years. I used to draw them next to like mermaids whenever I draw mermaids, so they've kind of become a tradition to try and include them into Mermay sketches. I do forget on occasion, but when I don't, I'm very happy. Blobfish honestly started as like just a circle with eyes and then the tongue sticking out, and they were always cross-eyed. And looking back, I don't think I realized this at the time, but I did them as almost some commentary on my art, because it was like my opinion of my art was just, you know. And so like that idea like further evolved. So when I would draw a mermaid in a pose, I would try to draw this circular blobfish like in the same pose, but with the crazy face. I don't know, I've just really fallen in love with these guys. And then last year, I actually made like an extremely limited run blobfish back when I had my Etsy store opened, and it was actually a blob shark. And when I made it a shark, I had to give it like this sort of nose, and it brought some anatomy to the blobfish that it didn't have before. And since then I feel like my blobfish have improved. So I kind of try to include that same snout, but just a little bit smaller because it's not a shark, it's a little fishy. So yeah, we'll get back to that. This pose is a little weird. I'm just looking at it. But like, it fills the page, so I think I'm just gonna go with it anyway. So I sharpened this pencil and now I'm darkening up some of these lines. For some reason with this pencil sharpener I can get bolder lines. I'm not entirely sure why. How did I not give Blobfish his little tongue? Here we go. And then his eye would probably bend. See, if you move your mouth over to the left there, it's gonna squish up, and then that skin has to go someplace, right? So I'm gonna squish it right over the eyeball. And that just makes it feel more 3D. I don't know. 3-dimensional. That means the same thing, but never mind. When you correct yourself, but you were already right, so now you sound as dumb as you felt. Don't forget her seashell bra. When it comes to doing mermaid bras, I don't like to keep them too simple, even though I do like looking at art where they're very simple. I like to add some kind of detail somewhere. Lately I've done like rope for the straps, like sea rope that they had to like scavenge. I like to think about the mermaid like, how does it live? Where did it collect its clothes? Did they make them themselves? Like those sort of things. I'm not entirely sure what to do with this, so I'm gonna leave that. Come back to it later. Let me just try to figure out how this looks in a 3D space. Sometimes adding these like circles, like pretending the body's in a cylinder shape and sketching that out can help. What if she's like leaning on a bubble? Okay, now I'm going on a bit of a bubble frenzy. But how do you stop? They're so cute and round. They're like blobfishes, but without faces. Or is a blobfish a bubble with a face? So this pose looks like she's like laying down, but she's also like floating in the water looking in. Yeah, but like I said, it fills the page very well. It's just... We've got a bunch more mermaids to draw. I can improve later. That is something for tomorrow me to worry about. There's just a big bubble behind her that I can like fill in with a solid color. And then for the tail, I saw on Instagram, it was actually my own drawing from like last year, last Mermay. I drew this one mermaid that had, it almost looked like hair for a tail, so I kind of want to try and do something like that. So I'm going to stick to sort of a tail shape, so that's these shapes. And then inside them, I'm going to add like some swooshy hair bits, you know? You know, go crazy with it. I really want the blobfish to be like squashed on top of her hand here. Make them look comfy. Because usually I draw the blobfish kind of trying to recreate the pose that the mermaid's doing. But in this pose in particular... No, actually, this does look a lot like her pose. I think we're good. Because like her hand's up and her other hand's down. And then he's just looking the other direction. So yeah, okay, never mind. I'm just working out fine. And then for the bra, I think I will go with the rope straps. I think they're fun to draw. They add like a little bit of texture without being too distracting. And then what if there's like either ropes or something like, you know how you can have those like beaded fringe? What if there's some like of that? Oh, but what if it's like coral? That's kind of the shape of coral. I have this like little tiny eraser. This came in like a scrawler box like years ago. But it's working really well because I've been doing a lot of pencil sketches. And then that has that like little tiny point that I can use to get little tiny erasing. I think I'm just about done with the sketch, but I want to try something here with the hair. But let me just try this. I might not go with it. It's kind of weird because I have it like getting skinny in that middle bit. I don't know about this. No, probably not, right? I'll keep thinking about it, but right now I'm going to ink. So I'm going in with a 03 fine liner. And I'm planning on hopefully building this up in some spots to give it some line weight and variation, that's the word. And then if I need, I can like go up to larger sizes. My favorite's like a 05, and then when I'm feeling really crazy, I like 08. So I'm trying something a little different here with the 03. The eyes, I kind of want them to be lighter. Like usually I would just fill this in black, but I think it'd be kind of cool to try and color those in and see what happens. I've been doing that a bit lately, and I don't know, I'm intrigued by the idea. Like, even though I've been doing it, I prefer it with solid black, but I've been trying to add, like, variation to my characters. So I've been, like, forcing myself to do it. This pen works really well for, like, the tiny details of the rope. I'm impressed. So I'm switched over to the 05 pen. I'm trying to use this to, like, fill in some of these areas, give it a little depth. Screw it, I'm just going to the 08. I want to fill in these spaces a little faster. I keep going over the lines over and over and over again with like the 03 and the 05, and it's getting old. I want some big, bold lines. I just realized I made her forehead like non-existent. Was that always like that in the sketch? I've kind of left the hair so that I can make it long if I so decide. You can see with the tail, I usually keep it super rounded, but I tried to like corner off some of the edges. Does that make sense? Ooh, that was a good line. Did you see that? Alright, last thing here. I just need to do this tail. I don't know why. I like can't talk when I'm doing the big swoops. That's a fun shape to draw. Look at that thing. Just figure out where the rest of this bubble goes. For some reason the sketch over here disappeared. Oh well, I drew that line. I guess I'm not going to do the long hair. Yeah, I think I prefer the bubble kind of filling that space instead of the hair. The hair's interesting. I could probably explore that idea further in like another sketch. Make it more of like the focal point and not just some weird element that's just, you know, on the drawing. That was probably the best decision. Here's my finished inked piece. Maybe I'll have the line art available for you to color if you'd like. I'll have it linked in the description if that's the case. But yeah, let's move on to coloring this. If you want to go pause, print that out, and color along, go for it. I don't want to erase this completely, but I'm going to really lightly erase, so I'm not going to push too hard and erase some of the pink lines, because I kind of like the way they look under Copic markers sometimes. To color this, I'm going to need markers. Here they are. And for the color scheme, I'm kind of seeing like greens and yellows. So let me try this yellow. Yeah, that's very pretty. Maybe this green. Hello, doggy. Well, those are very similar. Maybe I'll try a darker green next to those. Yeah, look at that. See how much lighter those look next to that dark color? That's because there's some contrast between those two colors. Whereas the first green and yellow, they're like a very similar tone, and there's not a whole lot of contrast between those. Like, it's almost hard to tell where one color ends and the next one begins, which can be nice for blending if you want to create like a fun gradient. And then I'll use that greenish blue for the bubbles, I think. I think I'm gonna go green skin, so I'm gonna use the yellow for the hair, and then blend that out into this green. Ooh, look at how that looks when it's just eyeshadow. For some reason I always color this way. When I do a face, I like to color like under the eyebrows first, and then the nose and the cheeks. It's just a process. Let me do this fast so that I don't get too many streaks, and try to blend it into that yellow. See how you can't really tell where one ends and the other begins? Works pretty well for this specific scenario. Color in the chest here. I'm probably gonna add a lot of shading to this, but right now I'm just doing a base coat and adding a little bit of variation by going over it a couple times with the same color. So it's kind of like experimenting where I want it to be darker without like going in with a darker color and, you know, maybe making a mess. If you're wondering what paper I'm using, I literally bought this paper for like writing letters with pen pals and stuff. And one day I got lazy and I didn't want to get up and get my marker paper. So I used this paper for markers, and I was like, oh, this is, ooh, a blending. Ooh, that's so nice. And like it only bleeds through to the other side if you like layer like 5 times or go over the same spot like 5 times with the same marker. That'll do it too. So I do have to be careful not to get it on my desk or anything underneath of it. But it just works so good. I'll have it linked in the description. It was kind of just like the cheapest cardstock that was like A5 size that I could find on Amazon. I don't even think it has a brand name. And I'm using this purple for the shading now. It gives it a little bit of a hue shift, but this specific marker is very light, so I can layer it over top of these without making it, you know, look too purple. It's very transparent, that's the word. So I've kind of been avoiding using that dark green. I'm a little nervous, but I think I want it for the tail. We gotta do it for the contrast. I'll just test it over here. Holy crap, that's dark. I can use this lighter color for under the bubble, so it's kind of like you're seeing through the bubble. That's a little light. I might have to darken that up. You know what? We gotta go big or go home. Oh, this hurts me. This is the only way to get better. You gotta just do it. Okay, it's actually a lot harder to get like a solid color with this dark marker. It could be running low maybe, but I doubt it because I don't use this marker very much. I'm just gonna layer it a couple times and hopefully get rid of those streaks. And then I can also actually use that to my advantage and maybe make scale shapes, like some spots here and there. It's kind of interesting. And then this tail, I guess I'll make it the same color as the hair. Why does this look golder over here than it did over there? Does this look darker than it did on the head? Interesting. Oh, maybe it'll just dry lighter. Okay, I'll just give it a second. Let me add some green hue shifts here and there. Make her look a little murkier. And then when I get to where the tail, like where the tail and the fringy tail bits like intersect, I'm gonna try and blend the colors together a little bit better. Make this like other green, the light green. So that's the one I use for the skin tone, and I'm using this to like blend these two colors together. And that's working really nice, so that's pretty. Look at that gradient. So I've been coloring a couple bubbles here, and so what I'm using is this BG11 to like fill in the centermost bit of the bubble. So I leave like a white edge around the line art, and that gives it a little bit of a shiny thing. And then I use this green and create like a shadow and then blend that out with the BG11 again. Look at that, it kind of looks like water, doesn't it? And I just have to do that for the rest of this big bubble. Just fill in the center with this color. Add a little green for shading. Blend it out with the light blue. Do the same thing down here. Now for the seashells, I was thinking yellow, but as we experimented before, the yellow next to that green, there isn't a whole lot of contrast. So I'm gonna go in with the dark green. Well, this looks alright. It's just very dark. Darker than I'm used to. But look at that contrast. So for the rope, I actually layered it with the yellow and then went with a light green over it. So we have that color. It's like a new color, but it still feels like it's part of the color scheme. And then we still need to color in little blobfish down there. So I'm gonna make him the same color as her hair. So this golden yellow. And then maybe I'll add some green spots or something. We'll see. I don't want him to look too plain and cartoony next to him. What I could probably do is add like a little green... Oh, that's a little too much. Some green blushes. There we go. That adds like, you know, that hue shift I was talking about with the hair and the tail. So it just gives him a little bit more interest. And he's got freckles. And they have the same color eyes. Isn't that cute? So I've tried a few things to try and add like more detail to this. But here I'm using the Sakura Decorous white gel pen and I'm adding some highlights to the eyes and the cheek and the nose. Then I'm trying something different here with the hair. Does that look aquatic? It looks kind of wet. Feels a little bit like Star Wars-y. You catching my drift? I don't know, I like it. I wonder if I could do that to the tail in some way. What's cool about this white gel pen is I can actually paint over it with the Copic marker. So what if I draw like these scale shapes and then I can go over them with like a light green? And that'll give some like visual interest to the tail and hide some of those streaks that I wasn't able to get rid of. You can't forget some shimmer. Like a little bit of a highlight. It kind of like follows the length of the tail. It's kind of cute. And when I paint over that, it'll feel a little bit more cohesive, not crazy white. I really like the way I did that hair, so I'm gonna do the same thing down here by the tail. Add those like dots and squiggles. It just adds like another layer of detail that wasn't there. Honestly, like the first layer of detail. My artwork's not that detailed. Wow, that looks kind of interesting. I like it. So I let everything dry like 10 minutes and now I'm gonna go over it with this yellow. Is that obvious enough? I feel like it still looks white. I'm gonna go over it with like the skin green. This seems a little bit more what I was looking for. Oh yeah, look at that. I just like the way it looks layered over top of the other green color, honestly. It's more what I was hoping for. And here we have it, look at her! I really like those like white gel penny bits where I like went over with the light green. I think that's my favorite part. But yeah, here's my finished illustration for today's Mermay. Again, if you want to check out the other drawings I'm doing this month, there'll be a link to my Instagram in the description. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you all have a delicious Mermay full of mermaids. That didn't really work. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys all next week. And I hope you have a delicious evening full of waffles. Bye!